antioxidant water, it also like hydration water, energy water. When I drink this common water, I have a lot of energy. Okay, this is doesn't do anything like for me. Just dead water. Okay, living water, dead water, living water, antioxidant water, it also like hydration water, energy water. When I drink this common water, I have a lot of energy. Okay, this is doesn't do anything like for me. Just dead water. Okay, living water, dead water, living water.
And notice how the living water provided the light, you know?
This is called the Rose of Jericho, or aka the resurrection plant. Watch what happens when you pour water on these bad boys. It can go years without water. Years looking dry, lifeless, dead. But when you add water to it, look, it comes back. Some of y'all think you're too far gone, right? Too dry, too numb, too distant from God. But the fact is you're not dead. You're just dehydrated. And all it takes is living water, and you'll come back to life. I don't know if you forgot this, but God specializes in reviving what is dead.
This is the book of Matthew chapter 22 and verse 32. And it reads, I am the God of Abraham and the God of Isaac and the God of Jacob. God is not the God of the dead, but of the living. All right, Shalom. I want to give all the praise, honor, and glory to Yahweh Bahasham, Yahweh Shai Bahasham Rakah Quadash. Double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone who taught me this truth. Shalom to the hopeful elect. I want to get into the spiritual significance of the living water, which is Yahweh Shai through the Spirit. So let's make that point.
Dead water, living water.
This is called the Rose of Jericho, or aka the resurrection plant. Watch what happens when you pour water on these bad boys. It can go years without water. Years looking dry, lifeless, dead. But when you add water to it, look, it comes back. Some of y'all think you're too far gone, right? Too dry, too numb, too distant from God. But the fact is you're not dead. You're just dehydrated. And all it takes is living water, and you'll come back to life. I don't know if you forgot this, but God specializes in reviving what is dead.
Man, we were dehydrated, man. You know, and let's expound on that point because this is heavy. As he said, God specializes in reviving what is dead. That's spiritual, okay, because that's us, okay? We were amongst the congregation of the dead, right? Revelation 11 and verse 8, it says, and their dead bodies shall lie in the street of the great city, which spiritually is called Sodom and Egypt, all right? That's America, Babylon the Great, all right? And those dead bodies represent Israelites that are not in their right mind, okay? That have been separated from the wisdom, knowledge, and understanding of these scriptures, man. That have been separated from their power, all right? Those dry bones, okay? Proverbs 21 and 16. The man that wandereth out of the way of understanding shall remain in the congregation of the dead. All right, that was us at one point, man. Okay, we were those dead bodies, those dry bones. It says, which is spiritually called Sodom and Egypt, where also our Lord was crucified. Verse 9, and they of the people and kindreds and tongues and nations shall see their dead bodies 3 days and a half. All right, at 350 years of us being in that dead state, not knowing that we were the Israelites, not knowing Yahweh Shem Yahweh Shai, right? Being called by another name. It says, and the nations shall see their dead bodies 3 days and a half, and shall not suffer their dead bodies to be put in graves, right? Because Jake lived a slave his whole life, not knowing that he was an Israelite, that he was a son of God. All right, we weren't laid to proper rest. Okay. Verse 10, and they that dwell upon the earth shall rejoice over them and make merry, and shall send gifts one to another. All right, and Jake was the gifts, the slaves. Because these two prophets tormented them that dwell on the earth. The point, verse 11, and after 3 days and a half, the spirit of life from the Most High entered into them. And they stood upon their feet, and great fear fell upon them which saw them, right? And this is where we at now, all right? The revival, okay? The spirit of life entering back into the Lord's people, all right? Which contributes to what? The great awakening of Israel, man. Let me make this point. This word spirit in the Greek.
Strong's G 4151, pneuma. Pneuma.
Pneuma in the Greek for spirit. Okay. It says definition 2 down here says the spirit, i.e. the vital principle by which the body is animated, right? That's the spirit, the Rakakwadash. All right. The Lord put life back into us, right? It says a life-giving spirit. Okay, let me go down to the lexicon here. Right? Bear with me. Let's see what else we got. The breath, right? The Lord put the breath back into us. Ezekiel 37. All right. Number 2, the spirit, i.e. the vital principle by which the body is animated. To breathe out the spirit. The spirit is that which animates and gives life. The body is of no profit. It says, for the spirit imparts life to it, not the body in turn to the spirit, right? And that's what John 6 and 63, right? Let me get that real quick. All right, this is John 6 and 63. It is the spirit that quickeneth, the flesh profiteth nothing. The words that I speak unto you, they are spirit and they are life. You see that? So it's of the spirit of how we were brought back to life, right? Let's get some more. All right, just tying in the spirit, the breath, real quick. Okay, Ezekiel 37 in verse 1, vision of the valley of the dry bones. All right, Ezekiel 37 and 1, it says, the hand of the Lord, Yahweh Shemir Washai, was upon me, and carried me out in the spirit of the Lord, Yahweh Shemir Washai, and set me down in the midst of the valley, which was full of bones, and caused me to pass by them round about, and behold, they were very and many in the open valley, and lo, they were very dry. You see that? We were very dry at one point. That's those dead bodies, right? NLT, verse 2, it says, he led me all around among the bones that covered the valley floor. They were scattered everywhere across the ground and were completely dried out. You see that? And that was us, like he was showing here. You know, these plants, as he named them, I forgot the name, but once the water hit these plants, all right, they were instantly revived, because at one point they were dried out. All right, so the water, all right, that living water gave them life. You know, everything is spiritual, right? Let's go back. Verse 3, Ezekiel 37 and 3. And he said unto me, son of man, can these bones live? And I answered, O Lord, power, Yahweh Shemir Washai, thou knowest. Again he said unto me, prophesy upon these bones, and say unto them, O you dry bones, hear the word of the Most High. Verse 5, thus saith the Lord, power, Yahweh Shemir Washai, unto these bones, behold, I will cause breath to enter into you, and ye shall live. You see that? And the Lord put his breath back into us. All right, the breath of life, the spirit. Okay? And I will lay sinews upon you, and will bring up flesh upon you, and cover you with skin, and put breath in you, and ye shall live. See that? You know, the Lord gave us back the knowledge of who we are, our heritage, nationality, his name. Okay, the understanding of prophecies, right? This is how the Lord put the sinews on us, and put the flesh back upon us, and covered us with skin, right? And put breath in you, and you shall live. All right, now we're living again. All right, we're out of that dry bone state. We're out of that dead state of mind. Okay, And ye should know that I am the Lord, Yahweh Shemel Shai. Verse 7, so I prophesied as I was commanded, and as I prophesied, there was a noise. All right, that noise represents the awakening of Israel, man. All right, what's happening in these last days right now, this time we live in, man. There was a noise, and behold, a shaking, and the bones came together, bone to his bone. Right? So imagine a dead body receiving life and then, being covered with the muscles and the skin, the eyeballs being put back into the head and, standing up. Okay, it's a spiritual revival that's taking place amongst Israel, man. The Lord's true people, right? Verse 8, and when I beheld, lo, the sinews in the flesh came up upon them, and the skin covered them above, but there was no breath in them. All right, going into these camps that you see, all right, that lack true depth when it comes to the scriptures, man. All right, there's really no level with these other guys. All right, they just know that they're an Israelite. All right, they may know the name of the Lord, may not, but that's just as far as they go. They don't go into the dark parables, the grave sentences, the mysteries, because they're not dealing with the breath. All right, they don't have the whole truth. Okay, verse 9. Then said he unto me, prophesy unto the wind, prophesy, son of man, and say unto the wind, thus saith the Lord power, Yahweh Shemel Shai, come from the four winds, O breath, and breathe upon these slain, that they may live. Remember, we were dead at one point, man, as we read in Revelation 11, right, going back, right, we were those dead bodies, okay, but the spirit of life entered back into us. Right? Let's go back. Verse 10. So I prophesied as he commanded me, and breath came into them, and they lived, and stood up upon their feet, an exceeding great army, all right, which represents the house of David, all right, standing back up in these times now, man. All right, so let's get into again the significance of the living water here. All right, because it all ties in. All right, it's Isaiah 44:1, the blessings of Israel. And it reads, it says, yet now hear, O Jacob, my servant, and Israel, whom I have chosen. Thus saith the Lord, Yahweh Shemel Shai, that made thee, and formed thee from the womb, which will help thee. Fear not, O Jacob, my servant, and thou Jeshurun, whom I have chosen. Okay? And that word Jeshurun goes into upright. Let me pull that up. Upright. Okay? Upright one. A symbolic name for Israel describing her ideal character. All right? The upright, the elect. Okay? The house of David, man. Okay? Verse 3. For I will pour water upon them. For I will pour water upon him that is thirsty, man. The water. Okay, Yahweh Shai, the true living water. Right? For I will pour water upon him that is thirsty, and floods on the dry ground. I will pour my spirit upon thy seed, and my blessing upon thy offspring. Real quick, I'm going to read this again. Let me go to John. All right, John 7. All right, the living water, right? Real quick. He said, I will pour water upon the dry ground. All right, John 7:38. He that believeth on me, as the scripture has said, out of his belly shall flow rivers of living water. Out of his belly, meaning out of his mind. Okay? The rivers of living water representing Yahweh Shai. Okay? It says, verse 39, but this spake he of the Spirit, which they believe on him should receive. For the Holy Spirit was not yet given, because that Yahweh Shai was not yet glorified. Right? So again, Yahweh Shai representing the true living water, man. All right? And you got to digest, all right, the living water through the Spirit, man. Okay? So anyway, going back. Okay. Going back to Isaiah 44:3, For I will pour water upon him that is thirsty. All right, so we understand what the water represents, right? I will pour water upon him that is thirsty, and floods upon the dry ground. All right, that represents the offspring of the elect. All right, you got new believers that are coming into this thing in these last days. You know, it says, "And floods upon the dry ground. I will pour my spirit upon thy seed, and my blessing upon thy offspring." Right, this is in the NLT to the right here, Isaiah 44:3 NLT. It says, For I will pour out water to quench your thirst, and to irrigate your parched fields. And I will pour out my spirit on your descendants, and my blessing on your children. That's us right now, man. Okay, remember, we were those parched fields. We were that dry ground, those dry bones, man. All right, the Lord said, I will pour water upon him that is thirsty. Let me make a quick point. Isaiah 41. He said, I will pour water upon him that is thirsty. I want to make that point. Isaiah 41 and verse 17, right? Yeah, Isaiah 41 and verse 17. And it reads, it says, when the poor and needy seek water. All right, the poor and needy represent Jake, man. Okay, when the poor and needy seek water, all right, the truth, all right, and there is none, their tongue faileth for thirst. Why is that, man? Because Jake is spiritually dehydrated, man, by believing on these other doctrines. Okay, these other religions and philosophies, man. It's not providing Jake with the true nourishment. Okay, it's not quenching his thirst. This is why Jake is thirsty, man. Right? It's all spiritual. And their tongue faileth for thirst. I, the Lord, Yahweh Shemel Shai, will hear them. The power of Israel will not forsake them. You see that? I will open rivers in high places and fountains in the midst of the valleys. Right? That's tied back to really the highways and hedges, man, where this water is flowing at, man. Okay. Also the internet through these videos. Right? The Lord said, I will open rivers in high places and fountains in the midst of the valleys. Right? I will make the wilderness a pool of water. All right. So here in America right now, all right, Jake is becoming hydrated through this knowledge, this understanding. Okay. I will make the wilderness a pool of water, and the dry land springs of water. You see that? Jake is receiving the truth. All right. Getting the nourishment, the hydration he needs. Right. Let's go back to Isaiah 44 and verse 4. It says, and they shall spring up as among the grass, as willows by the watercourses. Right. So this ties into the camps. All right. That's sprung up all across the planet, man. All throughout America. Okay. All across the water. All right. You got camps all over the earth springing up in these last days, man, because this is all of the spirit, man. Okay. That's through that living water. Right. And I just want to make a point, because I was looking up the as willows by the watercourses. Right. Let's pull that up. Isaiah 44 and 4 commentary real quick. It says here, they will sprout among the grass. This phrase suggests growth and vitality, symbolizing the flourishing of God's people. In biblical context, grass often represents transience and mortality. Isaiah 46-8. But here, the sprouting indicates a divine intervention that brings life and renewal. And that's heavy, because that's what happened. All right, for us to be brought from the dead, to be spiritually revived, all right, through this living water, is divine intervention. Okay, this is from the heavens, man. Indicates a divine intervention that brings life and renewal. The imagery of sprouting among grass can be seen as a metaphor for the spiritual revival and prosperity of Israel. You see that? Jeremiah, real quick, just thinking about that. The Lord said he was going to heal us, man. Jeremiah 30 and 16. No, Jeremiah 30 and 17. And it reads, For I will restore health unto thee, and I will heal thee of thy wounds, saith the Lord, Yahweh Shemel Shai, because they called thee an outcast, saying, This is Zion, whom no man seeketh after. Right? So this is tying into, as you see, the restoration of Jacob, man. All right? The Lord restored health back unto us through this truth, man. Through this knowledge. All right? By giving us the true living water, man. All right? That's part of the healing. Us, being raised from the dead and standing back up upon our feet is the point, right? Let's go back to Isaiah 44. Oh no, the commentary. Here we go. Right? So it says, where we stop at. It says the imagery of sprouting among grass can be seen as a metaphor for spiritual revival and prosperity of Israel, reflecting God's promise to restore his people. The growth is not just physical, but also spiritual. See? Indicating a renewal of faith and commitment to the Most High. There you go. So it's all spiritual, man. The restoration of Jacob, man. How did that happen? Us being raised from the dead, being brought back to life. All right? Through the means of this living water, Yahweh Shai, through the Spirit, man. Isaiah 44 and 5. One shall say, I am the Lord's, Yahweh Shai Shai's, and another shall call himself by the name of Jacob. You see that? Because remember, we're coming from that dead state, reclaiming who we truly are. Okay? That's part of the awakening, all right, that's taking place around the world, which the Lord said that would be a sign, all right, unto Egypt. Isaiah 19 and 19. And it reads, In that day shall there be an altar to the Lord, Yahweh Shemel Shai, in the midst of the land of Egypt. All right, that's the prophets, man. All right, teaching, making their bodies a living sacrifice. And a pillar at the border thereof to the Lord. The pillar, the foundations going back to the leadership, the apostles, the elders, bishops. All right. Verse 20, the point. And it should be for a sign and for a witness unto the Lord, Yahweh Shemel Shai of hosts, in the land of Egypt. All right. The fact that these camps have been raised up all through America, all over the earth, is a sign, man, of the end. Okay. It says it shall be as for a sign and for a witness unto the Lord of hosts in the land of Egypt. For they should cry unto the Lord, Yahweh Shemel Shai, because of the oppressors, and he shall send them a savior, Yahweh Shai, and a great one, and he shall deliver them. See that? And that's the time we live in now. All right, Yahweh Shai is on his way back to gather his elect. Okay? Isaiah 44 and 5. One shall say, I am the Lord's, and another shall call himself by the name of Jacob. And another shall subscribe with his hand unto the Lord, Yahweh Shemel Shai, and shall name himself by the name of Israel. See? NLT, some will proudly claim, I belong to the Lord. All right? That's the awakening. That's the true Israelites reclaiming their heritage, man. Others will say, I am a descendant of Jacob. Some will write the Lord's name on their hands and will take the name of Israel as their own. All right, see that? Let me add on to that too. In the Apocrypha, right? That's was it Wisdom of Solomon? Bear with me. Wisdom of Solomon, the 5th chapter, right? Oh, chapter 2. Right. Wisdom of Solomon, chapter 2 and verse 12. Therefore, let us lie and wait for the righteous, because he is not for our turn. He is clean contrary to our doings. He upbraideth us with our offending the law, and objective to our infamy, the transgressions of our education, right? Verse 13, he professes to have the knowledge, he professes to have the knowledge of the Most High, and he calleth himself the child of the Lord, fulfilling what we just read here in Isaiah 44. Jake waking back up, coming out of that dead state and reclaiming his nationality and heritage, man. He was made to reprove our thoughts, Psalms 50 and 21. All right, the Lord raised us up and set us in order right before the eyes of our enemies, man. Right? He is grievous unto us to behold, for his life is not like other men's. His ways are of another fashion, right? Because we are the true people of the Lord, man. All right? These people that are proclaiming to be us are not us. We are esteemed of him as counterfeits, right? Frauds. All right? The small hats. He abstaining from our ways as from filthiness. He pronounces the end of the just to be blessed. All right? The kingdom. Right? And maketh his boast that God is his father. See that? So tying it all together. All right? That all ties into Jake waking up. All right? Jake being hydrated with that true living water, as we were reading in the commentary here, man. All right? It's all part of the spiritual revival and prosperity of Israel, man. The restoration of Jacob. All right? This is Sirach, or Ecclesiastes chapter 21 and verse 13. It says, the knowledge of a wise man shall abound like a flood, and his counsel like a pure fountain of life. You see that? Going into the water, the true living water, this knowledge, man. Through the spirit and power of Yahweh Shemel Washai. It says, the inner parts of a fool are like a broken vessel, and he will hold no knowledge as long as he liveth. Right? Let me add on to that. All right? Scriptures say that our people have hewn out broken cisterns that can hold no water. Jeremiah 2 and 12. Be astonished, O you heavens, at this, and be horribly afraid, and be very desolate, saith the Lord, Yahweh Shemel Washai. For my people have committed two evils. They have forsaken me, the fountain of living waters. Right? They have forsaken Yahweh Shai, man. And hewn them out cisterns, broken cisterns that can hold no water. Yeah, that's these other doctrines, man. All right, that can hold no water. That are not giving Jake the truth. All right? Jake all up in Christianity and Islam and, these different doctrines, black consciousness, Egyptology, okay, being black culture, all that bullshit, man. None of those doctrines hold water. Those are those broken cisterns, right? Verse 14, is Israel a servant? Is he a homeborn slave? Why is he spoiled? Exactly. And this is the reason why our people are destroyed. For what? For the lack of knowledge, man. There you go. Right? So yeah, that's pretty much the point, man. Just like I said, the spiritual significance of the true living water, man. All right, just wanted to land back off this quick point. Pray that this quick lesson was edifying, man. All right, Yahweh Shemel Washai specializes in reviving what is dead. All right, it's all spiritual. Shalom.